Hello YouTube. This video may or may not be a little bit jumpy. I am doing it on my new laptop, and so it has a built-in webcam, so it's probably going to be a little bit different until I install the other one. Watching what's happening on TV with the Wisconsin protests, I know several people have commented that they wanted me to do more political stuff. This is the time that I'll do it. Right now what we have in the United States is we have more wealth inequality between the rich and the poor than ever before. Now, I'm actually doing a paper, my midterm paper for political leadership, which is one of the classes I'm in, deals with generally wealth inequality in general from the 1970s to the present. I'm reading, things by Domhoff, etc. Now, Domhoff would be considered, oh, well, he's a radical leftist, So I chose some other stuff by Gelman and McCarthy and a few others. McCarty, sorry. Not Joe McCarthy. I wouldn't read that. But various other works here. And I'm learning something interesting. Relative to inflation, the income of the lowest 8 quintiles of, lowest 8/10. I'm thinking of a different graphic in there. Relative to inflation has fallen. The income of Americans, the lowest 80% of Americans, is going down relative to inflation. The top 20% is going up relative to inflation. Now, we know there's wealth inequality in America. Our inequality is higher than, basically the entirety of the world. We're a nation that supposedly is built on things like equality and fairness and all these things. Fairness and equality, okay, the notion that everybody, if given a relatively decent shot at achievement, will end up achieving if they've got the drive to do it. That makes perfect sense, but what you've got in this country is a system whereby the majority of the population doesn't get that shot. We have potentially hundreds of thousands of brilliant people who could be scientists and artists and singers and politicians going to waste in this country, and it's all because of, and again, I don't buy into the left-right dichotomy, but I hate to say it, it's primarily the responsibility of the right wing in this country. Now, if you watch Fox News on these Wisconsin protests, you'll get things like radical leftist activist Michael Moore supports these, and he's student walkout and all these things. You'll get the notion by watching things on the mainstream media that for some bizarre reason, groups of teachers and other middle-class income families who rely upon their collective bargaining rights in order to make sure that they don't get fucked over, that they're somehow responsible for the crisis we're in right now. No individual in the lowest 80% of the population is responsible for the problems that we see in the United States today. They don't have the political power to be affecting the political process in that manner, because all the politicians come from that upper fifth. They don't have the economic power to do anything about it, because they're not getting paid very much. We think, oh, well, those teachers getting $100,000 a year with income and benefits, why, God, they shouldn't be complaining. There would be enough to give everybody in the middle class that kind of income if we weren't allowing the richest 1% of the population, oh, well, we won't give them any additional taxes. We're in a deficit right now. And we're in a deficit because we're not taxing the upper class enough. And people say, oh, well, that's socialism. That is not socialism. Taxing the wealthy at a higher rate equalizes their rate according to inflation. They are making more and more money. They're doing that because they already control practically the entire business and industrial system. If you've got all the industrial capacity and all of the business capacity locked into a tiny percentage of the population so that The mom and pop store down the street might be the only place left in town that's not owned by a corporate conglomerate. When you have that system in place, of course when the economy expands, that percentage gets richer. And what we basically have right now is a return to the idea of trickle-down, which never worked to begin with, and the notion that, oh, well, the poor should be happy that we give them $10 a week for, some food. And people blame, because they've been lied to by the media and the politicians, the middle class blames the lower class because, oh, those lower class people are taking all the unemployment benefits and all this free medical care and stuff, so they're to blame. And the lower class blames the middle class because all these government workers and unionized skilled laborers, well, they just get too much money relative to us and we're not happy. Can't you see what's happening in America? The middle class and the lower class, neither of them is to blame for the problems. They don't have the political or economic power to be responsible for the problems in America right now. They're being pitted against one another by the rich through the media. Oh, well, don't fight us. In the past, it was well understood that the rich had the control, thus they had the responsibility to do what was right for America, and when they didn't, and people protested, they joined hands together and did so. Now you've got the media and the government and the rich power elite going down to people and saying, well, fight each other, like barbarians in a tournament for us to watch. These people are getting rich off of two illegitimate wars. They're getting rich off of controlling the entire military-industrial system to begin with. They're getting rich off the fact that they own all the means of production. Now, I'm not a Marxist. I'm not a leftist. I don't believe in things like communism and socialism. But I understand, because I'm not stupid, that the rich and the powerful in this country have been habitually lying to the people from day one. That's happened throughout human history. But now they've got major media outlets, so they can continually ram home every night on TV for an over-televised public that wants nothing more than to sit down, get high, and get drunk, and smoke tobacco, and sit on their couch and watch Fox News or CNN. They've got that media outlet to convince the general population, yes, indeed, the middle class and lower class should fight each other because the political parties agree that one of them is responsible for the problems. The responsibility for the deficit goes completely to the government and to the power elite, because the power elite is the stock from which the majority of people in the government are selected. A very small handful of people will actually get elected that didn't come from at least upper middle class roots. They've all got at least upper middle class roots. The vast majority of them come from rich stock. And all this Horatio Alger bullshit of the made man and the pull yourself up by the bootstraps America, that, oh, you can rise up from utter absolute poverty and become, oh, look at Bill Gates. Well, Bill Gates had a Harvard education. He was obviously extremely intelligent, but he was also given the ability to succeed by the fact that he did indeed have connections. The fact that he dropped out of Harvard doesn't really make a lot of difference because he went to Harvard. The whole Horatio Alger bullshit. Horatio Alger was a writer who was very popular in the United States at one time, who wrote the story, basically continuous stories of some poor boy who made it good because usually he saved the mayor's daughter or something like that, but also he worked his way up into high society. That doesn't happen in the United States. That's a bullshit fairy tale dream invented by people in the right wing who think, oh, well, mom and apple pie swell America. Anyone can make it big, and if you don't make it big, that's okay. It's okay to earn a decent living and finally die of lung cancer after having worked around asbestos for your entire life. It's all this, it's bullshit. It's complete and utter bullshit. And the rich know that it's bullshit. They don't get fed the Horatio Alger bullshit story. They get fed the story of, oh, we're better than everybody else because we were born into the silver spoon in hand sort of society, so we have the right to govern and we have the right to be rich, fat plutocrats and be assholes. That's what they think. And people have been lied to recently by the media into thinking that it's not okay to dislike the rich because the rich do so much for America. Look at all the wonderful things that their tax money provides. Well, they could provide a lot more with a lot more tax money if we had the balls to do it. Unfortunately, the right wing is completely controlled by the power elite. And the left wing is basically controlled by the power elite too. So right now what we have are the Republicans ruled by the power elite and taking the side of the little guy, the laborers and all the lower class, and saying, oh, well, you know, you can work your way up, but here, attack the middle class because they're responsible for your problems. And then you have the Democratic Party, also ruled by the power elite, and they say to the middle class, which is their constituency, oh, well, attack these unemployed geeks and nerds here. All these unemployed dudes, and, you know, they're getting welfare and all sorts of benefits. And to some extent, that's actually switched in a juxtaposition whereby the Democrats actually, in a way, are more beholden to the lower class and the Republicans to the middle class, depending on the state. You see, I live in Vermont, so here it's a little bit different. But the main problem in the United States has nothing to do with the lower and middle classes. They haven't done anything wrong. If the populace is in debt because of credit, they say, oh, well, these people are just too dumb to handle a credit card. Why do you think they got into debt in the first place? Could it be that they were trying to provide basic appliances and services for themselves that they couldn't afford with cash because the rich were taking all the money in the first place? No, say the media and the power elite. Of course not. It's their own fault. They could work their way up if they wanted to and wade knee-deep in shit across fire and brimstone, and then they'd come to this monumental valley that's called the Land of Milk and Honey, Horatio Alger story circa 1935. That's the bullshit lie that's being fed to America. I look at these people in Wisconsin protesting, and I feel sorry for them. I'm not a government worker. I'm not part of a union. I wish I was in the middle class making $100,000 a year in income and benefits like they are, but I don't blame them for wanting more because they have the intelligence to understand that they could easily have more. We have a country in which 1% of the population owns 50% of the wealth. Why'd that happen? It couldn't be that we're not taxing them enough or that we haven't got our law system set up to compensate for that fact. You see, ultimately, the rich send their children to the private school and then to the Ivy League education. Doesn't matter if they're more intelligent than the rest of the population. In fact, usually they're not. Intelligence-wise and motivation-wise, they are the same as you and I. The only advantage they have is their birthright into this silver spoon society. That is the reason that they get different treatment. So the fact that the majority of corporate CEOs were rich to begin with doesn't surprise anybody. But the media and the government are consistently lying to people and saying, oh, well, the lower class is responsible. Oh, well, the middle class is responsible. Oh, well, the academics are responsible. Oh, the people in labor unions are responsible. The people who vote a different way from you are responsible. Somehow, it's everybody's fault except for the people who are actually to blame. And those are the people that are running the fucking country in the first place. The rich and the powerful. And yet we get told every night on TV, don't blame the rich. Where? The rich aren't responsible for our problems. The rich pay the most in taxes, so they're the ones that are helping us along. Well, you could make them pay more taxes and people would get along even better. In fact, if you were to stop the 2 illegal wars, close Gitmo and all the other detention facilities and bases that we don't need, and stop sending aid to other countries that neither need it nor deserve it, and then you were to tax the rich just a little bit more because I'm pretty sure that they can afford it, we wouldn't have a deficit. And we wouldn't have to cut any programs. But we won't do that because everybody knows it's the responsibility of the small segment of the population that's unemployed and getting welfare and unemployment benefits. Oh wait, that used to be a small segment before the problems happened. Who was responsible for that? Again, the people who are in power. And it's also the responsibility of these greedy teachers who have the best job in the world, and also post office workers and people in low-level bureaucracy. It's their fault too, because they're very, very greedy people. They want to have $50,000 a year, and we think that should be lower because they don't deserve it. Do you see the sarcasm here? The problems in our country right now aren't the responsibility of the poor, and they're not the responsibility of the middle class. They're the responsibility of the upper class. And I'm not even talking upper middle class. I'm not talking the people who live in condominiums for half the year. I'm not talking about people with a second home. I'm talking about people with a fifth home, a sixth home, a seventh home, 10-car garages, 2 Learjets, people like John McCain. They're the ones responsible for the problems right now. But nobody wants to admit it because it's a lot easier. It's a hell of a lot easier when you're lied to constantly with our basically, Goebbels-style media that we have at this point. It's a lot easier to be told that the lower and middle class are responsible and for them to hate each other. So it's really easy for 80% of the population to blame the people who are directly above or below them. It's very difficult for them to blame the rich because they understand that the rich are already in control and that there's not a lot they can do about it. So rather than fight the rich, they prefer to fight each other tooth and nail for what little is left after the rich build their mansions. After the top 10% of the population gets done with their wealth, what little trickles down to the general public is fought over by the middle and the lower classes. That's what happens in the United States. And what I don't understand is how people can consider it socialism to tax the rich a little bit more. We've raised and lowered taxes on the middle and lower class repeatedly throughout our history. Tax levels have always changed. Why the hell is it socialist to tax the rich a little bit more? Because we're in a deficit right now and we kind of need the money. And rather than cutting a bunch of programs that keep the poor from starving to death and keep the middle class from losing the jobs they are already in danger of losing, I would think it would make more sense to tax the people who can actually afford it. But no, say the Republicans and the right-wing media, we can't do that because the rich are our friends. They're great friends to the United States. No, they're not. The rich don't give a shit about you. There are a handful of humanitarians among the rich who give a shit. Not nearly enough. The majority of them are obsessed with power and money because they were raised under power and money. It's all they fucking know how to do. They've been completely corrupted. And it does make sense to say there's a segment of the population that is by necessity more corrupt than the rest of the population. It makes sense to say that. What do you think they teach you in Harvard when you're learning to become a corporate lawyer? They teach you how to lie and cheat and how not to feel bad about the fact that you're defending a company that's essentially screwing thousands of people. Oh, I'll go to defend the tobacco company. I'll go defend the liquor company. I'll go defend this company that's trying to bilk its workers out of hundreds of thousands of dollars of compensation after a bunch of them got tumors in their lungs from hanging around asbestos. I'm a good person. You have to completely redo your whole friggin' mentality to be like one of these people. How do you think it feels to be a corporate leader and know that you're screwing thousands of people? How does it feel to be one of the executives at Walmart knowing that half your products are from slave labor in China? You think these people have a fucking soul? Of course they don't. And then people will turn around and look at someone like me who's actually making sense, arguing the point, and they'll say, he's a socialist. Or he's just a communist. Or he obviously hates the rich because he's not one of them. You know what? I wouldn't want to fucking be rich. Actually, I want to go into the academic field because I'd like to make enough so that I can be removed from the rest of society and just do my own thing, because to tell the truth, society is just completely fucked up. When you have the lower and the middle class, instead of focusing on the rich as the source of their problems, fighting each other because of a stupid political dichotomy that's been around for 5-6 decades, that's just foolishness. It's just absolute foolishness. And these people, I don't know whether it's the public education system just keeps people ignorant, because remember, the power elite have the private schools. So everyone else has to fight over whether they want to go to a slightly better public school or not. I'm wondering if that's leaving people ignorant of the real topics. Personally, I think in public schools around the country, they should be taught civics, and they should be taught politics, and they should be taught about economic systems and things of that nature, and they should be fucking told from a young age that there is no equality in this country. Rather than bullshitting the children and saying, oh, everyone's equal, doesn't matter how rich or how poor you are, you're equal to everyone else. No, they should be taught, you're not fucking equal. You're not fucking equal. You will never be rich. You will never be powerful. Because the system was not designed for you to be rich and powerful. The system was designed to keep you a corporate slave. The system was designed in order to keep you working so that they could take the money you were making. The product of people's labor goes right into the pockets of the rich. There is no production shortage in this fucking country. We have more than enough arable and industrially capacititious land. We have plenty of land that is capable of being utilized. We have plenty of labor. We have plenty of great minds thinking all the time. We have plenty of infrastructure in place. There is no production shortage. That is not the reason that we have the problems we have today. Anybody who says that it is a fucking liar and a shill for the rich and the powerful. The reason we have the problem we have today is because people who are poor and middle class think that it's great to fight one another because one of them is getting a little bit more in social benefits and the other's getting a little more income. Because they're both fighting over the 2 or 3% that's left over after the rich have taken all the rest. And the rich aren't doing any more labor than the poor and the middle class and the upper middle class are doing. Those three classes do 99% of the work. And 99% of the benefits goes to the rich and to the government, which also eats up a huge amount because it's too big. That is the problem in our country. It has nothing to do with the poor, the middle, or the upper middle class. None of them are to blame. They're just all completely deluded. And the fact that more people can't see it is just a testament to a poor education system, which again is underfunded because the rich don't have any reason to fund it. The people who are ruling the country send their children to private schools. They do not care if the general population is being adequately educated. If we were being adequately educated, there'd be enough money so that every child could be bilingual, so that every child could get 4 years of each basic subjects, so that each child could take senior law and civics courses and political discourse and analytical thinking, and each student would be encouraged to take college prep classes. That would be what would happen if we had a fair system in place. But instead, the rich get those things. By the time that the average rich kid has graduated high school, they're trilingual and have, several years' worth of AP credits stocked up. They're not any more intelligent than the general population. They just have access to a school that costs more money. We could afford that level of schooling for the general population. We could easily do that. The fact that we don't get afforded that is just, again, a testament to the fact that, for some bizarre reason, people have forgotten that their real enemy are the plutocrats, the people who are sitting overlording everything that we do. They make all the social decisions, they make all the economic decisions, and they usually make incorrect decisions because they're idiots. They're idiots just like you and me, and they don't have any additional information or education to be able to make their decisions well. The only difference is on paper, yet we're not